nation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath. When you pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic, static. Call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath. When they pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic, static. Call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't resist us. Up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. Rising up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. Rising up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic, static. Call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't resist us.
And welcome everyone to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. I am glad you are all here today. We have a lot to talk about. Today is a very special show as we have finally, it's after Labor Day, we have clearance. Today would be the first time that this show is also being live streamed on our campaign page. As you already know, we are forced to put this little disclaimer down there on the bottom, and that is that this thing is paid for by the Vollano for State Senate campaign. A little thing that me and the SEEC worked out a couple months ago, which we've been talking about. So now we could actually, now that Labor Day is just about over, it'll be over tomorrow, we'll really get into things really that target more towards the district and what's going on up at the state. That does not mean that we will not talk about anything that is still happening in the great cities that we will represent. And of course, the overall theme is to make sure that I am accessible to everybody, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. If you have questions, feel free to call in. So for those of you who are watching on the Vollano for State Senate campaign website and on the Facebook page, I am Joe Vollano. If you are new to the show, I welcome you. I am your host and your guiding light through all the craziness going on in the state and the cities and the country today. And there is a ton of it. But as I just discussed, this show only works best when you are involved. So if you want to call in, 203-679-9610. When you call in, you can talk about anything you want. And there are no restrictions on what you can talk about. And you'll get a pretty much straight answer on anything that is boggling around in that mind of yours. If you feel more comfortable emailing, you can straighttalkjv@gmail.com. Also, I forgot to make a graphic for it. Also, connect at Vollano2022.com, as you can see it in the background there. on the Vollano for State Senate sign. Vollano2022.com is also our website. You can go there and connect as well. So let's dive into all the greatness going on in this state today, because it is absolutely crazy. So first thing I want to talk about, since I want to wrap this up, we've been talking about this for months now. Let's talk about the CRB here in Meriden. Obviously, everyone knows I'm against it. And if you read the newspaper, I believe it was today's newspaper. Now, I know I give the Record Journal a lot of crap. I do. But I got to tell you this. I've been impressed with one of their reporters, because he seems to give, for once, it's a breath of fresh air to know that they, or at least I can't tell what his political leanings are. And that's very rare, because, I mean, you asked me about Mary Ellen, Democrat, hardcore. You talk about, the way Eric Cotton's run the show, the Record Journal over there, Democrat. But Mike Gagne, I can't tell. And he's been very fair. And when that happens, I don't mind them reaching out to me for comments. Granted, listen, as someone who's running for political office, it is my responsibility to answer questions from the press. But for certain things, I really don't have to, as far as like the CRB here. But he's been fair to me, so I'm always more than being willing to be fair to him and to sit there and answer his questions, because I think he is doing a good job at trying to just get information out there without trying to add his opinion, or whether, I can't tell you whether it's being leaned one side or the other. And I respect that. So I have no idea how he feels about me, nor do I care. But the fact that he does write very well, I am more than happy to answer any questions that Mike Gagne has. And kudos to you, Mr. Gagne. Keep up the great work. I like reading your columns. It's one of the few reporters I actually do enjoy reading. So, but obviously everyone knows that the CRB will be going towards another vote. I believe it is next council meeting, because it has to be a certain amount of time to be reviewed. But Gagne put together a very good a story here on the Civilian Review Board. And again, my just for all you new listeners to the show, I am, of course, if you read the article, you already know I'm against it. And he did quote us in the article. I am totally against the CRB. I'm against the CRB because, one, it's absolutely pointless. We haven't had a use of force complaint in this city in about 3 years. We've had maybe 2, but they were withdrawn by the complainant. And that's because body cameras don't tell a lie. And everything is recorded with interactions from our police department. So, and I think our police department does an absolutely stellar job. Now, in the article, it says that I have been against this since day one. And that is true, since the Use of Force Committee, because the Use of Force Committee was actually, I won't say as bad as this list, it was worse. You had hardcore leftists who openly did not like the police department. And with all the evidence given to the Use of Force Committee, that was denied by nobody, they still came back and said, well, we need it. Even though we already have a civilian oversight of the police department. We already have oversight, civilian oversight over the police department. It's called the Public Safety Committee. It is a committee of councilmen and women. But of course, they don't want to do their job. They don't want to take responsibility. So they're going to, as they always do with everything else, pass it off to somebody else. And at the end of the day, how much is this going to cost the taxpayer? Because this will cost. Obviously, they have 40 hours of training they have to do. That costs money. Who's going to pay for that? You are. The taxpayer is. The taxpayer is going to be put on the bill for it, put on the hook for it. So I love the fact that they actually did print out, and again, this is just true gag me form here. Put forth the Civilian Review Board committee members. Now, I'm going to go through here, and I'm looking at the people who were not taken. And I noticed when I look at the ones that were, there's one thing that's missing. If you go and look up all these individuals, and I did, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, five of them, well, really, they got rid of one. 4 hardcore leftists, and then you have 2 moderates, and then you had the right on which, and I'm happy about April getting on there. So April, I think is a good addition. She's a business owner out in South Marin. She owns Tom's Place. Her father began it, who obviously Tom. So I am glad she's on there. But there's one thing missing out of all this, and that's youth. And I wonder if anyone thought about that as they're picking all these. Because the fact that there are no youth on here, I think there's a couple people that would have been good selections. One, I think, well, first of all, I think April, who's, I won't say she's on the older side. I think she's like my age. Richard Cordero, maybe would have been a halfway decent pick. I know he's a libertarian, and I think he would have been I think he would have been fair. I think Josh Borkstra would have been a good selection. But there are a couple out there that I think would have been a pretty good selection. Now, again, there are some Democrats that are on this list that, while I believe are huge liberals, like Hartman, she's a huge liberal. And if you're on Facebook, you'll see her and myself and others going back and forth on some issues. But I know Hartman, and I think she'll be fair. So that's just from my experience. I think she will be fair. It looks like we got our first caller for. Oh, Dan, you're going to have to hit me right back there. Either I hit the wrong button or I just missed you. But if you want to call back, I'll take your call. But I think Hartman will be a decent choice. But to sit there and say that, this is balanced is far from accurate. And of course, when they mentioned me, obviously, as it says in the story, my opposition extends back to the city's formation in late 2020 of the Use of Force Committee, which is absolutely true. And we're going to take Dan's call here. And Dan, are you there? Do we have Dan? Oh, boy. Look at that. They're just trying to make me look bad here. Let's see what we got here. Okay, Dan, one more time. I apologize. One more time there, Dan, if you want to jump on. But to say this is a fair committee, I believe is false. And I will agree with Mr. Cardona on one thing. We will tell in the future on whether or not that is accurate or not. Because, again, this committee will be scrutinized heavily on the way it goes about its business. So let's go with Dan one more time. Here we go. Dan, are you there, Dan?
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
There you are. Sorry about that. What's going on, Dan?
The quote I wanted to bring back to you was in when they had the 2-year thing on Chief Rosado in the paper, and this is one that bothers me the most. Kim Fisher, who is the president of the NAACP,
Yeah.
she also made comments to regards to the police and his officers. She says Rosado has been doing a great and always makes time for listening and to address concerns regarding department and a community. Fisher said, in addition, Fisher noticed that when officers are requested to attend an event, they go. When it comes to police brutality and use of force, Fisher said that to her knowledge, it is not an issue in the city under Rosado. He keeps an open door policy at the police department, and if you have issues, he's easy to approach.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, for the last 3 years, even before Rosado, use of force was getting under control. And listen, under Chief Cassette, there was no more vocal critic than I was. I was not a fan of Cassette. I don't like the way he ran his department. I think there was a lot of cronyism in the police department at the time, and a lot of those people are gone, which I can't say I'm sad to see them go. But under Chief Rosado, you're absolutely right, and everyone is right, is that they decided that he was doing a great job. But as always with liberals, and I say this with liberals, not Democrats, with liberals, they never let a crisis go to waste, and they used George Floyd to sit there and say, hey, we could get more oversight and more control over our police departments, and we could dictate to them what they can and cannot do. And the hardcore liberals on the city council, which most of them are, jumped right on the bandwagon to go and put the police department under their boot and say, you're going to do what we want and not what you want, even though we know there's no issue here.
One of my biggest concerns, and again, is with Michael Cardona. And I've said this repeatedly. Last year, he did not attend 6 meetings for the public safety. And the thing of it is in that article also, he said he's happy with Rosado's performance as the chief. We have a city manager. He hired him. He could fire him. I mean, what seems to be the problem? Just pushing this CRB in their faces.
Yeah, but remember, they also gave Guy Scaife a raise 2 months earlier and said how great a job he did, and then fired him 2 months later. So correct. I think anything that a council person says in this city means absolutely nothing. Means absolutely nothing, because you can't take them at their words, because they will backstab you as soon as it goes against what they want. And if anyone doesn't think that if Rosado turn around and says CRB is absolutely horrendous, we don't want it, and starts actually bashing and talking about councilmen and women, he would be gone tomorrow. No matter what kind of job he does. They don't like to be questioned here in the city. And they definitely are not going to tolerate anyone telling them what they can or cannot do, no matter what the law says either.
And it is sad that, we have a situation that doesn't even warrant anything like this in Meriden, and then we're going to go forward with it.
Well, you know what they say. They say, well, we got to in case something happens. But they can't answer what that means, because there's already things in place if something bad should happen. Let's say a police shooting and they end up killing somebody. This is nothing that the Civilian Review Board is going to handle. This is something the state's attorney's office is going to handle. So every time they say that, I ask them, all right, well, give me an example. And they can't. Because, again, we know what this is all about. Cardona has said it himself. This board will only have review for now. And for now are the 2 key words people need to take out of that. Because I have said it since day one. Their ultimate goal is to micromanage the police department and to dictate to them what laws they can or cannot enforce. It's like what the federal government does with immigration. That's what they're looking to do.
As I said, it's so sad because I've always bitched about this from day one. In 1999, approved by the city council, was an ordinance called panhandling in the city of Meriden. And I'm saying, why in God's name has this never ever been enforced? Well, they said it's against their First Amendment right.
Yeah, in some
Really?
way, in some ways, I again, as someone who's run for political office, I do understand where they're coming from. If they're just standing there with a sign, it is their right, and I sit there and say it all the time. If I'm standing there with a Vollano for state senate sign, which I will be, you know, do they have to throw me away too? I mean, and say I have to go? No, because it is my First Amendment right to sit there and hold a sign, as long as I'm not being aggressive and coming up to cars. So I am torn on that because, again, I don't want government in my life as much as possible. So it's a necessary evil. But when it comes to freedom of speech, we have to have a wide range of things that we could talk about, or you can talk about and do or say. But there's nothing you really can do about the panhandling or the guys sitting there with their signs. You just can't. It's just their constitutional right, and they're afforded their constitutional right just as we are with ours. And I'm not going to get in the way of that. So I understand where they're coming from with that, and I agree with it.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Joe. I appreciate it.
All right, Dan. Nice always talking to you, buddy. I will talk to you later. Yeah, so I mean, the panhandling thing has always been a hot button in Meriden. I mean, they literally seem to be everywhere you turn around. But again, you know, for me, it's more about your freedom to do that and for them to do that than it is whether or not it's a nuisance. I mean, listen, a lot of things liberals say to me is a nuisance. That doesn't mean I want to silence them. In fact, if anything, I want to strengthen their voices, because I want people to see the lunacy that is the liberals on the far left over there in the Democratic Party. But again, as far as that, they're not trespassing. It's public property. So if they're on public property and they have a sign, they're more than welcome to sit there and promote that sign. And just as we are when politicians are standing out there on the monuments or down on Paddock Avenue or wherever they are, we're standing on public property and we're holding a sign. So there's things you got to be careful for. Now, if they're leaving trash behind and stuff like that, that's a different issue. That's a littering issue. You can find them. You can't tell them to leave, though. I believe in your constitutional rights. And again, freedom of speech is the most important one. And anytime the government decides what you can and cannot say, you're going down a very slippery slope. Not near our monuments. What not near our monuments? You can't have panhandling near our monuments? Again, if that's the argument, then you can't have anybody else. Where are they standing? Again, that's for the public. That's for the businesses. Now you're talking about private business. And that's for them to decide whether or not they want them off or not. So that's something that can be taken up on with the businesses. But that's not something the police department's going to... I think where people are coming at is they want the police department to do something about it. And on public property, the police are going to do nothing about it because it's their First Amendment right. As far as on private property, if those owners decide that they don't want that, they could call the police and the police will remove them. But again... it's just the way it is. I don't know about that, but it shouldn't be on the monuments. It's not really on. Listen, you're not. It's a public place. I have no issues with it, but we could agree to disagree on that if we like. Again, it's public property. Those laws and rules matter. It's public property. Anyone could be there with any sign they want. It's their First Amendment right. Bottom line. And we'll leave it at that and we'll move on. But going back to the CRB, so obviously they're gonna take up these things, and the fact that they think that there is a good balance, and then to equate this as Councilman Cardona, could he acknowledge that the board will still have its detractors and the skepticism will remain until the process plays out? First of all, there's going to be no process because nothing's going to be happening. I guarantee you. And then in a year, they're going to be like, well, these guys aren't doing anything. We spent all this money on it. So what are we going to do? And they're going to sit there and they're going to give, again, this all depends on how next year elections go in the city. If Democrats keep control of the city, they'll sit there and push more powers to the CRB. And they'll do it little by little, increment by increment, kind of like what we just talked. If you've been watching that video of the principal in Coscob, which we're going to get into in a minute, it's the same thing. They do it subtly. So, and it's piece by piece by piece. And at the end of the day, it all builds to their ultimate goal. And again, in this case, it's micromanaging of the police department. In the principal's case, it was indoctrinating our children to liberal policies. And it's a perfect change into what we're about to talk about. So in case no one has seen it, there is a video going around. It's a 12-minute video from Project... what the hell is the name of the group? Cross my mind. There you go. But if we're going to go through the video, and I put some sound bites up there, and if you can't hear them, just let me know, because I do have the video here that does have caption. Thank you. I do have the video here ready to go in case you cannot hear or understand what they're saying. That does have the subtitles, so we can't go that way. But obviously, this group here has done this for years. They do undercover work, and what they do is they target liberals who are doing things that are illegal. And most of the time it's, something that's going against the taxpayer, willingly going against the taxpayer, but they try to hide it. So this one is with the education system. And we have a principal from Coscob who obviously knew he was being interviewed, have no idea why he would say publicly or to anyone what he was thinking, because, especially since he knew it was illegal. But this is what happens. Liberals understand that around other liberals, they're praised they praise each other, and there's no accountability. But for this time, this gentleman got unlucky. I mean, I'm sure this has happened many a times over his career. But this time, the person sitting on the other side of him was a reporter, an undercover reporter. And these are the best videos because these tell you what they're honestly thinking and where our education system is. Because if anyone thinks this is an isolated incident, they are fooling themselves. This is not an isolated incident. I'm sure this is going on all over the country. And this gentleman boisterously points out that he doesn't care about what parents want. And that parents don't shape their children. The education system does. And here's number one. Let me know if you can hear this. I just want to make sure that you can hear it.
I can't get past the parent.
What do you mean?
So the parents feel as though it's their responsibility to shape the schools, which then shape the kids. Right. So because I can't get past the parents, do I really have as much of an influence on the kids as I want? I try in my own way, but right now my job is to hire the right teachers.
Do we work for the parents or do we work for the kids?
You tell me.
We work for the kids.
So it's not about parents.
It shouldn't be. I don't think.
So basically what he's saying is he doesn't care what the parents want. It's not up to the parents to tell the school system how to run. It's not up to you. This is why school boards hate parents. This is why the school boards around this country labeled parents domestic terrorists because they don't want to hear from you, especially when it comes to what they're going to tell your children. Parental rights means nothing. When they go to school, they are no longer yours. They are ours to do as we wish with. And if parents have a problem with that, who cares? Ignore them. Ignore them. And continue on with your indoctrination. And if you are a teacher that disagrees with that concept, you are not allowed to have a job, apparently, to this gentleman. And this is what he talks about now.
But now watch how Boland tells our undercover journalist he doesn't hire anyone who sides with parents.
Ask me as if you're interviewing. Like, what are some of the questions you would ask?
So, I'm trying to think exactly how I worded it. So in a meeting with a parent, you propose a plan to develop for your student to develop these reading skills on these concepts, and the parent disagrees with you. How do you handle that?
Okay, so if someone sides with the parent, then what?
You let them explain, and then you move on to the next question.
But then eventually the outcome of that.
They don't get the job.
Now watch as Boland reveals to our journalist how he uses a specific line of questioning during the interview process to help determine if someone is conservative, which plays a key role in his evaluation on whether to hire that individual or not.
In the hiring process, how can you figure out who's conservative and who's not?
It comes down to the stories. So typically an interview is 30 minutes, which is not a long time. So you got to be very specific about the questions. So I've developed a set of questions that I use for almost all my interviews, and it's all leading them to tell a story.
So then what do you do with them? Like if they're applying for a job?
You interview them, and you call them in a few days and say, sorry, we moved forward with another candidate.
So like you would...
I haven't hired one yet.
And would you ever anything?
I don't think so. It's just that stuck mindset. I need a growth mindset.
So he's laughing about not wanting to hire them and laughing about, hey, if they answered the question wrong, we just let them finish and then just move on to the next question. And you just don't call them back. Or you call them back and say we went in a different direction. He's openly violating the law. And these are the people that are hiring teachers in our school systems, especially in the K through 12. I mean, the K through 5, where they're most impressionable. When those little brains of mush are being developed. Remember, he's telling you it's not the parent's job to sit there and develop that little brain. It's their job. And any parent that gets in the way, and any teacher that dare sides with the parents, no, he's not going to hire you. But if you believe in indoctrinating, you're able to indoctrinate children, he's all for it. He wants you, just as long as you're a Democrat. But it gets even worse. Because then he gets into religion. And here's the next one.
So have you found that certain religions tend to be more right-wing? What do you mean?
one, and I'm not a huge expert on religion, but
This one's a little hard.
probably what I said. As a Catholic, it's unbelievable.
Oh, so then what do you do with the Catholics? If you find out someone is Catholic, then what? So would you ever hire a Catholic then? I agree, but why not?
Because it's just that there's always that human race so I feel consider something new, like new opportunity, you have to think about this differently, and just step back.
Here I am.
So that one's a little hard to hear. So basically he's saying, if you're Catholic, you're done. If he even has a cent of you being Catholic, you are never going to get a job there. And he voiced at the point that he has not hired one yet. And he's saying that if you're a Protestant, well, you're most likely more progressive, so therefore you're going to have a better chance of getting the position. But he believes that most religions are right wing, and therefore have no place those people have no place in his school district. These are the type of people we've been talking about for decades. Whether it was, and this all started back in the 60s with the radical hippies, with Weather Underground and the Bill Ayers, where they put groups together of educators that said, hey, if we can't get them on the outside, we'll get them early on the inside. That was their plan. And that's exactly what they have done over the last, 60 years. The Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground approach to education is what has taken grip in public education. Now, if this was a private school, you can hire anyone you want. If you're a Catholic school, you're going to grab Catholic people. This is public schools. And I don't know how the parents of this school district have not lost their friggin' minds. Because I would have. But he wasn't done yet. He wasn't done yet. So, I mean, he already told you that parents have no place in education. He doesn't want to hear from you, and that they're his once they get to school. He already told you that your religion, if you're religious, you're gone. You're not even going to get an interview. But now he gets to age. And here we go.
You had a lot of right wingers applying.
I haven't interviewed many because I feel like I'm able to screen it out.
How so?
I need younger. So because Greenwich pays very well, you get teachers from other districts who've been there for a long time that want to come to Greenwich. But if they're older, I'm not allowed to do that. But I can't tell them I'm not interviewing you because you're older. I just don't interview you. So, like for one position, I think we had 30 applicants. So, out of all those applicants, I don't think I interviewed anybody over the age of 30.
Because they would.
A couple of reasons, yeah. Because sometimes the older you get, the more set in your ways, the more conservative you get.
Remember that teacher I was talking about before, the 40-year-old? I'll never change that teacher.
You're what?
I'll never be able to change that teacher.
Which one?
The conservative one, who's stuck in her ways. I'll never be able to fire her. I'll never be able to change her. So I make an impact with the next teacher I hire. So my instinct for hiring, I've hired maybe 4 or 5 people. They've been pretty good.
Okay.
So the fact that the teachers' unions weren't actually on that statement alone here. Well, first of all, let's start at the beginning of it. He said that he doesn't like hiring anyone who has been there for years because, they have experience, they've been through the game, and they can have their own opinions, and he doesn't want that. So he didn't hire anyone, or he didn't interview anyone over 30. First of all, you got probably about 15 or 20 lawsuits coming your way for civil rights violations. Because if I was any teacher who applied at that school while he was there, I'd file a lawsuit for discrimination. And I think the town of Greenwich are in for a slew of lawsuits coming from teachers all over this state. But the fact that he only interviewed those under 30, and he said, for a couple of reasons. I got to imagine what one of them was. And the other one was because they're impressionable and they are more liberal. And they will do as they're told. Or they already believe in indoctrinating our children. And therefore will do it on their own. And he's already hired 4 or 5. I highly suggest, and I'm sure that they're going to, they should be looking into each and every one of those teachers. And what are they doing in the classrooms? What are they saying in the classrooms? This is scary stuff. This is scary stuff. Because, again, that's not even the worst part. We haven't gotten to the worst part yet. This guy was full of gifts to our side and to those who want to get more control. But I tell you what, the fact that the teachers union did not hear this and say how this conservative teacher, he's been targeting this conservative teacher because he can't change her, but yet he can't fire her. The fact that the teachers unions have not been all over this just shows you what they care more about. And we'll get into their reaction after we're done with all of our sound bites. So, number 7, here we go. This is where he talks about indoctrinating our children.
Teaching them how to think. That's it. It doesn't matter what they think about it. If they think about it in a logical, progressive way, that becomes their habit.
So you kind of like gear them to think in a more liberal way.
Hopefully the more progressive teachers are actually more savvy about delivering a democratic message without really ever mentioning politics. It's subtle. They'll never say, this is a liberal or democratic way of doing this. They just make that the norm. This is how we handle things. It's subtle.
And that's how you get away with it?
That's how you get away with it.
And how do you make sure the parents don't find out?
They can find out, so long as you never mention the politics.
That you can influence them to.
So that you can influence them to vote Democrat. That's what he's looking to do. And that's why he likes these younger teachers. This is disgusting. This is craziness. They're not your children in his eyes. He is going to teach them how to think. And if you find out, they can simply say, well, we didn't talk politics. And they're saying that he's saying that these younger teachers just have a more savvy way of just dropping hints and guiding them to think the way they do or the way they want them to. This is what's going on in our education system. And then the last part is him talking about how subconsciously they're trying to indoctrinate your children.
So it's like you present everything in a way that's like subconsciously influencing the kids to vote liberal in a way, but it's not doing it in such an explicit way to where the parents can actually get mad at you for it.
All this.
So they do it subtle. That's the key. Piece by piece by piece, which is why they want to control everything. That's why they want to control everything. This is why they want to teach our children K through 5 about genders, about sex. They still believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. But they want to teach them about these things so that they can implant their views into their heads. So that when they grow up, they will think just like them. It is lunacy. And you would think that the teachers' unions would be up in arms about it. But an email went out to the Connecticut Education Association members. And of course, we got a copy of it. And here's what it reads. Good evening. We have been alerted that Project Veritas has dropped this hit. First of all, it's not a hit piece. It's not a hit piece. This is his own words. A hit piece using an administrator in Greenwich. While a teacher was not used so far, I'm wondering what else they got up their sleeves if teachers were involved in this. The narrative is that hiring liberal teachers to indoctrinate children. So it is not kind to educators. I have a couple of asks of all of you. One, please do not search this. We will get a clean copy of the video tomorrow. I still have not seen their version of it to make sure it wasn't edited. And we will share it out as soon as it's received. This is my favorite. Do not speak to any reporters that have not been vetted. What the hell does that mean? Do not speak to any reporters that have not been vetted. If you know the person, do you feel comfortable with? If you do not know the person, please reach out to Nancy Andrews at CEA to confirm their legitimacy. So unless they've been vetted by the Teachers Association to be friendly to us, don't talk to them. We're in enough crap as it is. Number 3, I would not comment on the Greenwich video at all. We knew they used this tactic to trap educators and union members into making incriminating statements. Don't feed the beast. It didn't look like she had to take much effort to let this guy start rambling off. Now, he seems very happy about sharing his philosophy on hiring. Because again, he didn't think anything of it. He could care less. He was very open. And that's what they don't want. They don't want you being open about what you really believe. Number 4, alert your members that Veritas is in state and lurking around. Keep meetings closed and ensure your members are the only people present. Why? If you have nothing to hide, who cares who's listening? Remind members that they could be the next victim of a hit piece if they aren't fully aware of who they are making comments to and what they say. It's time to double down on caution. And then, of course, they went and screwed up and on their press release, and no one caught it because they probably put this together in a rush. Remind members that they could be the next victim. He's not the victim. He is not the victim. So Kate Diaz, the president of this Connecticut Education Association, he is not the victim here. The children are the victim. The children are the victim. The parents are the victim. The taxpayers of Greenwich are the victim here. This SOB is not the victim here. Craziness. And then she finally finishes it. I am sorry that this isn't a bit more happy back to school, but this is the real deal. Trouble is hitting us locally, and we need to be very cautious. That means the shit's hitting the fan, the truth is coming out, and we need to protect ourselves from letting anyone else fall victim to it. So we agree with this SOB, but hey, we need to be cautious now not to let anybody else get caught up in it. We're just going to leave this guy out to dry, screw him. He was dumb enough to sit there and speak out and speak the truth. But now it's cutting out. We got trouble is hitting us locally, and we need to be very cautious. That's basically shut the hell up, is what she's saying. We're going to throw this guy out to the wolves. We're going to let them eat him up. We're going to let Greenwich, because they don't care about Greenwich anyways, because it's a bunch of rich folks, so they don't care about them. We're going to let them get hit up with all these lawsuits that's going to put this place probably bankrupt. If you have enough of these people, Greenwich is going to be hit with tens, if not hundreds of lawsuits that they're going to have to settle out of court, is going to put them in some debt. All because of one pompous ass. It is crazy. And the fact that the teachers union feels that he is the victim and not the children and the parents and the taxpayers tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. Exactly why my opponent hasn't come out and said anything about it. Because I'm sure she feels the same way. She's president of the AFT, of the Federation of Teachers. Because, again, she approves of his behavior. They've been doing this for decades. And most liberals up in the state house and Senate are all for it. Because they're just as crazy as this SOB. But notice how the president of the AFT, who represents teachers, has not said a word. Has not said a word. While everybody else is condemning it on both sides. But to the teachers' unions, this guy is the victim. This guy we have to have pity on. Absolutely not. Everybody should be reaching out to their board members on the Board of Educations and making sure this stuff's not going. No, I'll tell you this. I don't feel we have this problem in Meriden. I don't. I'm happy to say that. I may have a lot of grievances with the Board of Education lately, but this is not one of them. Do I believe there are liberal teachers in our school system? Absolutely. But I also know there's some conservative teachers in our school system. And I know my son has gone through the Board of Education system, and I haven't heard anything outlandish. And he's had some of these liberal teachers. So I give kudos to those teachers that put their political biases to the side for the betterment of the children. But there is a lot of these administrators out there around this country. And they need to be stopped. And maybe one day, my opponent will finally have the nerve and the backbone to speak out against what happened here. But I think she agrees with the Connecticut Education Association, and I think she believes the same thing that this guy was talking about. He's the victim because she doesn't like the parents of education either. So we'll see if anything comes out of that in the next couple weeks. So I want to get into this one more thing that I want to get into here because we got a couple minutes. I want to make sure I got this in. So I put a post out there. Connecticut House Republicans, Connecticut House, Senate and House Republicans are trying to. They had a meeting. They had a public hearing last week where for heating assistance up at the Capitol. And listen, everybody knows heating costs are going through the roof. Me being in the business and in the industry, I understand it, and I've expressed my concern on this show many a times. On my fear, because I deal with a lot of families, a lot of seniors who, listen, struggle now to pay their heating, to pay their oil bills. And I get it. And we do our best to try to help out as much as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, I run a business. I don't run a charity. And I think that's the same with a lot of oil companies around the state. We're trying to do the best we can to help everybody out the best way we can. Just a way, listen, I've given away a ton of free oil. It's just, if I could afford to do it, we do it. Especially if a family's in desperate need. We'll drop 20 gallons at a time for a customer, where normally our rates are, the minimum is 100 gallons. But when oil was at like almost $6, we knew that we couldn't keep that policy. So for our good customers, our loyal customers, we were delivering 20 gallons at a time just to keep them going. And then, when prices dropped a little bit, we were able to pounce on that. But at the end of the day, with the state assistance program, we need to give more money to this program. We have a huge surplus, which we've talked about for the last couple months. And at that time, I said, the heating assistance people are going to get hammered hard. It's going to get hit hard. And there's only $80 million worth of heating assistance to go around through the entire state. Now, everyone knows I'm a conservative hawk when it comes to financial. But we have a surplus that the taxpayers of this state paid for. And we need to give some back to the taxpayers. And I think this is a good way to do that. And Republicans are asking to put another $79.2 million and bring the total home energy assistance to $191.5 million. That is a good plan. That is nothing compared to what our surplus is. Again, if liberals up in Hartford are willing to give all this money out to their voters, which is basically what they're doing, they're paying off all their special interests, we could shell out another $80 million so we can make sure that our residents of our great state are not worried about whether or not they're going to freeze to death. Or if they run out of oil, they're going to start heating with their ovens. Or they're going to start with candles or something that's more dangerous. These are the things that we are expected to do up in Hartford. These are the moments in time, under these extreme circumstances, to take action to help prevent a crisis. And this will be a crisis if they do not get back into special session. Because in another couple weeks, the energy assistance program kicks off. And they're about to leave a lot of people scared about whether or not they're going to have enough heat or food. Because sometimes, especially with our seniors, with prices being so high, they can only choose one. This is what we need to free what exactly. I love the fact Joseph's on the show tonight. But this is what we need to do. This is a need. I think, Joseph, you said it right. It's not a want. It's not a free want. It's a need. They need this. They don't want it. And we have an obligation as public officials to help those in need. They didn't ask to be put in this situation. Now, again, maybe some of them decided, thought that giving trillions of dollars out was a good idea because they fell for the empty promises. But be as it may, this is where we're at today. And there are a lot of citizens out there that need our help. And this is one of those places where the government should help out. And we are able to help out. But it seems like the Democrats don't care. Because none of them are asking to join Republicans in the special session. The governor is not demanding a special session to handle this situation. And people need to remember that. People need to remember that. We're paying the highest inflation in 40 years on everything. And fuel is no different. This time last year, we were paying, I believe it was like $2.20 per gallon for heating oil. Right now we're at $4. And we're just hitting September. Anytime my customers ask, I tell them, you got to hit oil mid-December. I am mid-August. Mid-August to the end of August is when oil is usually at its cheapest. And you should jump on it then. Because once September hits, it starts getting a little colder. The energy assistance starts kicking on, and it drives costs through the roof because the supply is lower and the demand is higher. It's economics 101. And that $80 million is going to go real quick. Real quick. So I implored you to please, please, please contact your state reps and tell them it's time for a special session to help our needy families out. I have called for it. Republicans have called for it. Democrats, time for you guys to call for it. It's something we can all get together on the same page on behalf of our seniors and the low income and the working poor. They need it. They don't want it. So please, please, please reach out to your state reps. With that being said, again, I am glad that you guys joined us. If you are new to the program, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. Always feel free to write into the comment box. If you watch the show later on, after you're done, after the show's over, you can still leave comments and I'll see them. It always gives me an alert. Or you can always email us. I'll throw it back up there again. You can always email us at straighttalkjv@gmail.com. Or if you want to go to our website, it's up there in the back, Vollano2022.com. And you can drop us an email there also. But listen, it's important that you communicate and you engage with your public officials. It's extremely important. So always feel free to call in. Don't be bashful. No one's going to attack you on here. We're going to have good discussions. We could agree to disagree at the end of the day, if so be it. But you'll be treated with respect. That's the way I expect you to treat myself and our audience with respect. We've had many Democrats on here. We've had, again, Michael Cardona, the deputy mayor and chairman of the public safety. He's been on here. The mayor's been on. Obviously, the Republican council people have been on. Listen, let me put it this way for hardcore liberals. This is a safe space. We can talk about anything you want. Anything. There are no boundaries here. And if you've been watching this show for a while, if you've been watching it for, the year and 8 months that has been going on, you know we can have honest discussions here. Because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. So you can always email us, straighttalkjv@gmail.com, if you want something answered. I'll answer it next week. But obviously, we got a lot going on with the campaign. Obviously, it's now after Labor Day. We'll be really, really ramping up our door knocking. So you'll be seeing me at your door. I know you get to look at this mug and have some one-on-one time. And listen, you can say whatever you want to me. It's all good. I have very thick skin, so don't worry about it. Don't think you're going to offend me. So I've been called everything under the book. So just feel free to reach out to me. I'm very approachable. I'm always willing to sit there and have a discussion with you, no matter where we are. Always feel free to just say hello. Or even if you just say hello and say, hey, I listened to the show. Less than 60 days to go. Here we go. We're down the final stretch. We got a lot going on. You'll see a lot more things happening within our campaign. You'll be seeing a lot more of us. And I'll leave that for next week, though. You'll be seeing us a lot more in the next week. I think we have something going up, if I remember correctly, Thursday or Friday. I think you'll be seeing a lot more of us. But as always, I love each and every one of you. I love the fact that you're here. I love the fact that you're engaged. I love the fact that you're being informed. And if there's a story that we're not hitting on or a topic we're not hitting on that's important to you, let us know. But until then, guys, until next week, I love each and every one of you. Obviously, God bless you. God bless this amazing state of ours and country. Until next week, I will see you all later.
And the million faces formed together, made for elevation. devotion. I'm a soldier, won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice